Hello guys and welcome back to another episode. So today we're going to talk about Shadow Priest. So this is going to be a PvE guide, so if you're looking forward to play Shadow Priest, doing damage in the raids or dungeon, maybe trying to be the top damage, well, I will try to make you kind of the stable structure of Shadow Priest, give you the talents, the stats, the rotation, so you will be able to, you can say, be the functional one, and then from the functional I will give you the standard point of view. You can begin to enhance by yourself and testing things, but I will give you the standard setting, the build for both the raid and dungeon and for multi-targets. I will just go through the talents and tell you what you should choose depending on situations. So let's go through the first thing. So the first thing is your stats. The most important stat is of course intellect. So every time you get an item that is high eye level, you need to take it, because the high eye level you have, the more intellect you will get, and that's the most important thing. So first thing is eye level and intellect. The next thing is haste and critical. So haste and critical is both very important. The reason for why haste is very important is because your global cooldown will be reduced and your damage over time that you have 2 of will be faster. And also your mind flay will also be faster. So that means your damaging over time will deal, let's say right now it deals every second, but the more haste you have, lower than 1 second it will go, and it will take more. So maybe you can say your shadow or vampiric touch will take 10 times, but if you have 20% haste, well, then it probably will take maybe 12 times over its normal duration, and you can see that's 2 additional ticks. So that's already give you a lot of no damage, and of course your spells will be quicker to cast. So haste is very important for Shadow Priestess, but also critical strike is very important, because you have this shadowy apparitions. So every time your Shadow of Pain is critical, it creates a copy of yourself in shadow that moves slowly against your target and explode and deal 1000 damage. And it's like 4 of your Mind Blast, but again it's a passive one that doesn't really, you don't have to think about it, so it's free damage. So the more crit you have, the more often this one happens, and of course more crit also makes your spell crits more. So haste, so first of all, intellect and eye level, haste and crit are both very important, so try to get both of them in your item. Mastery and Vitality is number 3 and Vitality is number 4, and they are fine, but the mastery you have here, increase the damage of your Shadow with Pain, Vampiric Touch, Mind Blast, Mind Flay, Mind Sear. Well, it basically just increases the damage of your spells, but you still want you still want to have more haste and crit because of your shadowy apparitions and your haste for dealing more damage over time. So go with haste and crit, and then you can think about mastery after that, and then Vitality if you already have the other stats, you could say. There's one thing is very important is about crit. So your haste doesn't really have any, you can say, maximum of how much haste you need, but your crit, it's very important that you try to get 18% crit, because then shadowy appearances will have a lot of more, and the talent here called Auspicious Spirit passive, your shadow appearance now deal 100% increased damage and generate 2 affinity. If you have 18% crit and this talent here, it's increasing your damage a lot, because your shadow appearance will happen a lot of more times now, and it increased by 100%. So get 18% crit if you can, and then this talent will be the go-to. So that was the stats. Enough about the stats. Now about the talents. So the first row here up, Shadow Word Void is the go-to talent. That's the most going to, that helps you in every situation. It replaces your Mind Blast and it gives you a new kind of Mind Blast that has 2 charges. That means you can actually in the start of a battle cast it, and it has 2 charges and deal damage. Mind Blast normally deals 4000 damage. This one here also deals 4000 damage, but it has 2 charges, and it gives you 1 more insanity than the other one. So 1 more is not that much, but it has 2 charges. That means you can instantly deal 8000 damage and get up on 30 insanity. Beside this one here, we have Fortress of Mind, that is a very good single target. But this talent here is you only take this talent here if you want to deal a lot of more damage on single target. It requires that you actually are allowed to deal a full Mind Flare and a full Mind Blast. And if you don't, because you have to move around all the time, I don't recommend Fortress of the Mind. And if you're going to a place with a lot of trash mobs, I will not take it. It's only if you're going to stay on a boss that it's only the boss and nothing else. Shadow Void is again the go-to talent. That is a very nice one and deals increased damage because you can cast 2 times. You can say instead of 1 Mind Blast, you can cast 2 Mind Blast in boom boom. Shadowy Insight is only good if you are in a fight where you have a lot of movement. But the damage increase and the proc of it is not that good, so I cannot recommend it. But it's good if you have a lot of movement and you need to run around, because, or else if there's a lot of trash mobs, because you can cast Shadow Void Pain on them all, and then it has bigger chance to actually come. So this one here is only recommended on a lot of trash mobs or on a boss where you have to move a lot. The next row down here, the most of everyone is recommending Power Word Shield, the Body of Soul, Body and Soul it's called. So every time you use Power Word Shield, you run faster. And it's nice because if you have a debuff where in the raid where you have to go to the sides, so it doesn't kill the whole team, it's very nice to cast a shield on yourself and run fast over to the side. But I would say Sand Lane is one of my favorite talents, because you have Vampiric Embrace that deals, well, it heals you, causing you to heal a nearby ally for 100% of 6 of your single target damage. That means the damage you deal will heal someone, and it heals a bit, and the healer in your team will probably love you because you're kind of helping on the healing. And this talent here decreased the cooldown by 45 seconds and increased the healing by 25. So personally I think this one here is a really worth one, because it helps you healing, and I mean again Body and Soul give you a movement and speed, but in the raid I tried yesterday you don't really need it. So I would say this one here is a nice go-to and help your healers out with some healing. And Mania, I will not take that one because you're focusing on getting down in insanity all the time. So I would say Sand Lane is the go-to, Body and Soul if you want more movement speed. The next one down here is Twist of Fate, is probably the one I would say is the go-to, because it gives you your execute. So every time the boss is going below 35% or a trash mob, you just have to damage someone under 35%, you increase 10% damage and healing for 8 seconds. And of course it will refresh all the time when you're attacking someone under 35. So that means on a boss where you actually kill trash mobs fast and they die, you will get this buff and you deal more damage. And also when the boss goes below 35%, you deal more damage. So it's really the go-to talent on hard bosses where on 35% you use Bloodlust and you just need to kill this boss now or everyone will die. It's a really good go-to talent. And also on Trash, because Trash will go down on sometimes and then you can deal more damage. Misery is only good on a cleaving boss, so if there's 3 bosses you have to kill, it's a really great talent because you just have to use Vampiric Touch on one of them and it has both of your damage over time. So you don't have to waste 3 global cooldowns example on 3 bosses with Shadow Void Pain. You just use Vampiric Touch and 3 persons will get debuff on them. So it's a nice one if there's more than 1 mob. It doesn't really make sense on 1 mob because that would be waste. Then Twist of Fate would be that much better. Dark Void is the one that people say is kind of the go-to if you don't know how to use Misery correct or Twist of Fate. Then Dark Void will be additional damage you can use. So if you have dealing 2000 damage shadow and applying Shadow Void Pain to all enemies. So let's say the boss is tanking a group of 7 enemies, pulling them together, you use it, it explodes, deals a lot of damage, generates a lot of insanity, and give everyone Shadow Wave Pain on them. At that point, you can say View is a really nice spell because it deals a lot of kind of damage on a big group, and it gives them all the debuff, so you don't have to waste time on the debuff. But again, if there was 5 mobs, I would probably either take Misery instead, because then I would use Vampiric Touch on all 5 of them, and they get both of my debuff. Dark Void only puts Shadow Wave Pain on them. So I would say Dark Void is good if you don't like the passives, and if you're fighting a boss group or monster group of 10 mobs, because then it's quick to cast. Example is on Sekvos. When he summons a lot of these trash mobs, it will summon about like 10 trash mobs or something, where the tank will grip them together in one big group. Then it's very nice to use Dark Void, because you attack them all and damage them, and you need to kill them fast before everyone is dying. So in that case I could see it's good. But on all cleave bosses I will use Misery, and on all bosses where, well, also on cleave bosses you can use Twist of Fate. I would probably personally take Twist of Fate in a raid, and maybe Misery in a dungeon, because I like to, there's a lot of more trash mobs in a dungeon. Both of them are good, but theoretical, Twist of Fate is the best one, because you deal more damage on the boss. Maybe not in a normal dungeon where the boss dies under 1 minute, it's not worth, and you probably want this one on trash mobs, but I hope you know what I mean. They have all 3 a good thing. The last one down here is Last Word is the very nice go-to, because your silence will only have 30-second cooldown. So example on this kind of trash mobs in the raid, where you have to silence them, it's very nice to use Last Word on them, because you can use silence now every 30 seconds. But if you took Physical Horror actually, you have now a silence on 35 seconds and a stun on 4 seconds. So that means you can actually double interrupt now, but your silence now has a longer cooldown. So I would probably say Physical Horror is better, because you can now stun and interrupt. So it's up to you, but I would probably say Physical Horror is the coolest. The next one here is very tricky. Aspect of Spirits is only good if you have 18% crit, or else it doesn't proc enough to actually be benefiting. Shadow Word Death is the one that people would say is the go-to, because if you combine Twist of Fate with Shadow Word Death, it's very nice, because it's like you execute together with Twist of Fate. So now you have 2 execute talents, and the boss, when it goes down to 20%, you will deal 2% more damage, and you have a Shadow Word Death you can spam on him with 2 charges. So maybe you're not the top damage in the start, but when he goes under 20%, you will show them how you do damage. So I would say Twist of Fate and Shadow Word Death is a very nice nuke talent on bosses that goes low. The Shadow Crash is probably the go-to talent. If you don't have 18% crit and you don't want a new execute, then Shadow Crash is the go-to that has a low cooldown and deals a lot of damage for big every year. So in trash mobs, cleave bosses, Shadow Crash is the best one, 100%. But Shadow Word Death is potentially best for single target boss. But on cleave bosses, on trash mobs, Shadow Crash is the best one. So in a raid where we really have to focus killing the boss, I would take Shadow Word Death. But on a boss where he summons a lot of trash mobs, I would take Shadow Crash. But if I have 18% crit, I would go with Auspicious Spirits. The next one down here, I would just say it as personally, Mindbender would be the one I would take. Because when you go into your Void Eruption, your Void form, and use Mindbender, Mindbender will generate a lot of insanity for you, and that means you will stay in Void form much longer time. Lingering Insanity is not worth at all, because we will not go that high up, so it doesn't really give you any big bonuses. Theoretical, it doesn't give you the haste that it's worth. We are not staying that long in Void form, so it's worth. And on movement bosses where you have to move a lot and you cannot really do much in Void form, no, it's not worth. I would say Mindbender is better, because it helps you to stay longer in your Void form, so you actually can deal more damage. And your Void Torrent here is not worth. It has too long cooldown. I know it deals a lot of damage. It helps you to stay 4 seconds additional in your void form, but Mindbender is dealing more damage on the same time you're dealing damage, and it helps you stay in your void form. So I would say Mindbender is the go-to, or else Void Torrent will be the alternative. But I would like Mindbender, also to keep my rotation clear. The last one down here, you're probably thinking Surrender to Madness is a good one, but it's not. On a raid, it's very normally that people actually don't have 100% health. It's very normal that everyone is on a half-life because of so much AoE damage. So Surrender Madness will just kill you. So I will never use it in a raid. Maybe on a mythic boss where you have to kill him very fast, and if you don't kill him very fast, you know you will wipe. Then I will probably take it, but else never. Legacy of the Void is the go-to for easy rotation. It makes you, well, Void Eruption cast much faster, and you can already use Void Form on 60 Insanity. Dark Ascension is good if you actually know how to use it. It gives you a free additional Void Form. So instead of, you can say, instead of waiting for the grind from 0 to 90 what is called 90 Insanity, yep. So instead of grinding up to 90 Insanity where you actually can use Void Form, you can use Dark Ascension in the start of a fight, grind up Insanity, use it all, and then begin the grinding, and in that way you can use 2 Shadow Void Forms in kind of a row. Dark Ascension is really only recommended most on trash mobs or on cleaving bosses because it also deals a good AoE damage. So people say that Dark Ascension, if you know how to use it correctly, it's good for, it's the best one if you know how to handle it. If you don't know how to handle it, Legacy of the Void is the go-to talent. So that was the talents. Let's jump down. So before we quit the talking about Dark Ascensions, let's try it out here. So if I dot that target here, of course I have to go into Shadow Form. If I attack this target here and use my Dark Ascension, I go into Void Form and I can begin damaging. And I will be able to deal a lot of damage in start of the fight. So I will have a very big strong burst right in the fight. And then I goes out of it. And then you can say now I have again to grind up to actually get my next Void Form. But then when I have my next Void Form and I will use it and I'm finished with it, then I can use again Dark Ascension because it only has 1 minute cooldown. And in that way you can say you always have a new Void Form you can use. And in the totally fight you will be in a Void Form much more often. But Legacy of the Void is the go-to talent if you don't really can handle Dark Ascension. I mean, Void Eruption cast time is due by 40 and may cast anytime your Insanity is level 60 or higher. And normally right now you can cast it when it's 90. So it's only the half the grind Legacy of the Void is helping you. So let's see how fast I actually can go into Void Form without having the Legacy of the Void. So now I'm 40, 60, I had to refresh my dots, and now I can inside. So you can see it actually took me quite a time, but if I had Legacy of the Void I was able on half of the time to actually use it. So I think in totally it's almost the same because this one here just gives me 1 Void Form at the start and then I have to deal damage again to get my new Void Form and then it gives me back. But Legacy of the Void is making it able for me to already use on 60. But if you read on the internet, the clever hit says Dark Ascension is best if you know how to use it. And Legacy of the Void is the go-to if you don't know how to. Okay, so enough about that. Let's take my favorite talents to use just all around. Yeah, let's stick with that. Okay, so for the rotation, the first thing you would like to do when you enter a boss fight is that you want to use your Vampiric Touch and your Shadow Wave Pain. The most important thing is that you have to keep those up all the time, but only refresh it when it has like 2 or 3 seconds back, but don't let them go out. You don't want to miss a second where it's not affected. So it's very important you have them up all the time, and you never let them disappear from your boss, because if you disappear it will kind of destroy a DPS hole for you. So it's very important they're on all the time. Then on the next thing you do after you get debot off them is using your 2 Shadow Word Void. So pump them out, and each of them is giving you 50 sanity. So in totally now with Legacy of the Void I should be very close to actually use Void Eruption, and I would spam Mind Flare until Void Eruption is ready. Then when Void Eruption is ready, the cool thing would be up with your debuffs, make sure that they are ready, use Void Eruption, hit damage, and now spam Void Bolt every time you can, spam Shadow Wave Void every time you can, Void Bolt again, because Void Bolt is extending your damage over time with 3 seconds. So now the most important thing is spam Shadow Void and spam your Void Bolts all the time. Because you don't have to think about your damage over time when you're inside Void form, because it will automatically refresh your damage over time with Void Bolt. So if we try again here, up with my dots, up with my 2 Shadow Word, almost have enough insanity, and now my Void form, cast my Void Ball, and then increase the cooldown of the damage over time, Void Ball again, Shadow Word, Drain, Void Ball, and you can see now my form disappears and my debuffs is ready for putting on again. So yeah, as you can see, keep up your Vampiric Touch and Shadow Wave Pain all the time. Shadow Wave Void, it's very important that you use that all the time, and when you go into Void Eruption, use Shadow Wave Void and Void Bolt all the time, and don't think about, of course, if your damage over time is close to get off, you have to use them because it's important they are on, but try to use your Void Balls to see if you can actually refresh them with that one. And if you take the talent Mindbender, when you go into your Void Eruption, your Void form, let's go in here, there we go. Then I would use my Mindbender now, because now my Mindbender is generating insanity, and you can see it's kind of alone, keeping me inside my shadow form for additional seconds. So that one helped me a lot with holding up my shadow or void form. So if I DPS on the same time with that one, it will be a very big increase of how long time I can be in my void form. But my Mindbender and Void Torrent in totally will probably be, I think Mindbender maybe give you 5 or 6 second additional time in there. Yeah, but I think it's very close to the same time it gives you additional in there. But the cool thing with Mindbender is that you can cast other things at the same time, and you can also move around. Instead of Void Torrent, you have to kind of stay in the same place. And Shadow Priestess don't really have other cooldowns, so beside that we don't really have other big burst cooldown we have to use. The only thing I would recommend to use is use Dispersion if you're close to dying. It will help your healers to get you up again. And also Vampiric Embrace. Vampiric Embrace is a very nice healing to help your healers out, so if you can see a lot of damage going on, use Vampiric Embrace. And now it will heal some of your teammates for the damage you're dealing. The direct damage, not AoE damage, but only direct damage. So in that way you can help your healers a bit. So I actually think that's the most important thing of it for a Shadow Priestess. So I hope you enjoyed the guide. If you have any questions about talent stats or rotation, leave down in comments, and I will try to answer all your comments. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this PvE guide for Shadow Priestess.